Hello and welcome to another video. This time in a few minutes I will have a very special guest on, and this special guest has their own website called aliencarvings.com. I've seen a few of their videos and it's intrigued me enough to reach out to this person and asked if they would be interested in doing a live chat with me. So very soon they will join in on this live chat and they will show us the collection that they have of these alien carvings, etc. So, just for those of the people that will probably be either listening to this or watching this on Spotify and YouTube, etc. If you've not seen me before, I am the guy that talk about aliens and done 40 years of research into all sorts of things, Bigfoots and spirits, etc. Just while we're waiting for the alien carvings to join, Bourne has wrote, "Hey, can you talk about the African flood? Do you mean the only flood I'm sort of aware of? I mean, technically, there was other floods where, for example, Enlil diverted the Euphrates River for various different reasons. At one point, one was trying to kill people. So I've read the actual tablets of that." And there was flooding in Africa, but I'm guessing you're referring to the Great Flood, which did happen. It wasn't just Africa, if that's what you're referring to. It covered, according to Sitchin, it covered everything. When I say everything, Africa, Middle East, but where the Giza Plateau was. It was higher than where the water had reached, apparently, according to the Lost Book of Enki. So I'm not sure. I don't want to sort of go into too much detail because it might be even a different flood that you're referring to. So forgive me. Sherry's wrote, "Hi everyone," or "Hey everyone." Hi Sherry. Susie Q, I haven't seen for a very, very long time. Hi Susie, hope you're very well. And Bourne wrote, "Was it Enlil or Enki that settled in Africa?" It was Enki. He actually, I kind of worked this out a long time ago, but I hadn't read it properly. But basically, he had a little island. I mean, everything that I'd learned over the years led me to believe that he was on a little island off of the Abzu, off of South Africa. And it niggled me because I couldn't quite grasp anything that would actually say that. And then eventually I did come across something that literally said on his own little island. And I was like, well, finally. Which again kind of makes sense because he's god of sea, or god of ocean. So he clearly obviously wanted his own place away from everywhere. So we're just waiting for alien carvings to join at 7 o'clock my time, which is another 5 minutes. Williams wrote, "Did you see Brazil mocking God at the festival? The floods days later and the lightning that strike." I did not. There is a thing called HAARP, which is HAARP, which is a technical device that basically heats up the ionosphere, from what I've learned, something similar to that, where they can actually make it rain, they can make us have tornadoes, they can make us have all sorts of things now. And apparently, in conjunction with Project Bluebeam, which are these holographic images that they can put out and make people believe that they see a god or whatever else, and then add to that, an earthquake or a tsunami or whatever it is they want to do. People will be like, "Oh, this God, he's upset with us." But of course, if you do your homework, you'll realise that the Bible talks about the Anunnaki, not an almighty being. So I don't think, mocking God. I dare I say, I mock God. Google calls me God. My cup at work calls me God. It says God's cup because Elohim is the word for God. So, regardless of which way you take it, Elohim is plural, gods. And whatever way you take it, we've got original text that the Bible has copied from you. There's no denying it. And it's not just Sitchin that says that. You can just go and read the translations. Britmax has wrote, "We are aliens, we just don't know it yet." I think some of us are waking up to the possibility that we are hybrids. Born has wrote, "Remember last live I referenced African writing systems being erased and you said there was a flood." Yeah, see, the thing is with the... Well, I can't remember exactly how that played out, what I said, but the way I kind of see it is if there was any writing in Africa... sorry to the person that wants to join. I'm waiting for Alien Carvings to join. It's going to be there live today. See, sorry, I'm just going to get rid of the person keeps. It's a Arabic type name. Just keeps. Yeah, Africa doesn't see. There was humans in Africa because the Anunnaki created humans, but when it comes to Enlil having Adam and Eve, and he called them the civilized ones, and he started to teach them stuff. Logically, that leads me to believe that he didn't teach other than how to carry baskets. The African people, and I say African because that's where they come from. So I don't think there would have been any writing per se from them. So anything flooded over would have only really have been the Anunnaki's own writing, if that makes sense. Oh, there's alien carvings, except we've got our guest who's just joining, so forgive me if I haven't got to your messages. Hello there.
How's it going?
Hi, nice I can hear you. I'm going to try and... How do I
Perfect.
make you bigger and make me smaller?
Let's see here. I think if you click on the little square down there, it
Yep.
will have like a bit, one of those squares up in the top right-hand corner, I think it is. That should allow you to switch it or something. I had to play around with it for a minute because the interface is much different.
Okay, I'm desperately trying to... No, it says disconnect. Sorry, everybody. This is my first time of allowing someone to sort of go full size, so forgive me. I'm just trying to see what buttons there are. I've pressed the ones when I pressed you. I've got a microphone, camera, an end call by the looks of it, and then settings or something similar. If anyone knows how to make the guest bigger on the actual chat, please let me know. Sorry about this. I should have really Googled it, shouldn't I?
There's no way to, there's really no way to practice either because you can't get in there without going live. So yeah, I've had the same struggles.
Um, so have you actually done that before? Allowed someone to go bigger? I mean, technically, you've probably
Yeah.
got. Oh,
Yeah,
right.
I had to click on them and then it brought up sub menus. It might be under the menu or the options. There's one of them that allows you to switch, or it might even be up on um, up in the top right of your video area. I can't remember.
So I've got a little.
I'm sorry.
Oh, how annoying! Sorry, everybody. Best laid plans and all that. There's more down the bottom. Let me click more. Pause, comment, gift, interact. So, quick poll, no. Guests. There's a camera there. Let's see what that does. Turn off Carvin's camera. No, don't want to do that. Hang on. There's a switch here. Oh, no, it's switched to front camera. Switch to back camera. Turn off multi-guest.
Yeah, they don't make it very easy.
No.
And it's kind of delayed too when you're clicking on the screen, so it's like really hard to settings and
Someone said
layout.
settings and layout.
That
So I've
sounds
got to
right.
figure out where settings is. Um, choose grid. Okay, did I just see that a minute ago? Settings in grid. Sorry, I'm just trying to find what actually button I pressed a minute ago to get that. Guests, settings, grid. Here we are. Switch. Wow, that.
There it
Okay, there's
is.
no way I would have known that. Thank you to the person that said that. So, okay, so thank you very much for joining me today. So I've watched some of your videos. Obviously, I tried not to watch too many because I wanted to sort of learn as we go. Otherwise, I won't ask questions or anything because obviously I've
Sure.
watched some of your videos. So if you can just tell us a bit about yourself and what you've got.
Yeah, well, I'm a business owner here in Washington State in America, and I've collected rocks and minerals for years since I was a little kid, and I recently, 10 years ago, started collecting carvings, just precious stones from like Vietnam or Thailand, stuff like that. Nothing special or anything in terms of antiquities. And a good friend of mine went down to a large gem show in America and came back with one of these little carvings that looked something like this. And I thought it was pretty decent work. I asked him, who's making those, and he tries to tell me they're 10,000 years old, and I laughed at him because I just had a really hard time buying that if there's aliens on something that's 10,000 years old, it would be all over the news. And no, he was really persistent, said he saw carbon dates and that there was multiple scientists that agreed with this. And so I started to research it to kind of prove it wrong. And here I am 2 years later. I've got a large collection now of objects. I've done quite a bit of tests working with multiple scientists and personalities from TV to try to understand or to get the proper research done to understand these pieces. And we're starting to make pretty good headway. I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, it's crazy. I'm flip flopping on my standpoint, and I'm really starting to think a lot of this stuff is real. There's techniques and stuff that as a modern lapidary guy, to do some of these things, make these mosaics, glue them all together, put all this carving on here without making any mistakes. That's the real crazy part to me. Let me see if I can get my camera to focus here. I don't know if it's going to allow it in the group chat, unfortunately, but yeah, you can really see, the line work and stuff on these items here. This piece should show it a little better. This mask, all these lines are not consistent at all. Someone did that by hand. It wasn't computer done, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And this glue that connects all these pieces together, that's what they're doing the carbon dating on. These pieces are coming back, between 10 and 21,000 year old carbon dates, which, as far as the crystals on there, honestly, on this piece, I'm not 100% sure. It's some of them are turquoise, some of them are lapis, but then there's also certain specimens like these that are just really high quality. There's really bold and vibrant saturation, so it's hard to say what they are. It almost seems like they would be resin or fake on some of these because of the type of stone they are. But if they truly are 10,000 years old and the Earth had a lot more minerals about it at that time, then it's possible that these are
Are they
variations.
all from one location, or do you think they're coming from different locations from different
No,
times?
there's definitely multiple locations, but the two primary locations I've got on the table here and that we study is from like all these little pieces and these mosaics. They have a specific iconography and look to them. That's from Abuelo Stilisco, and then
So
there's
where's
these
that?
boxes.
Is that
That's
Mexico?
yeah. So in Mexico, yep, it would be to the north. Be the northwest of Mexico City for those pieces, and then you go to the northeast of Mexico City to Tula Hidalgo, and that's where you start to find these boxes and strange, ritual type pieces um, that are, I don't really have any explanations of their purpose. You get these like death whistles that are, made out of stone, but completely hollowed out and in tune. And what's interesting is it's not a typical 440 tune. It's like a 528 tune or 523 tune. Um, it's interesting because I've got three different whistles, so I was able to come to that conclusion based on the tones that they make. Like this one here is much lower octave.
I
Weighs
have
about
actually,
40, 45 pounds.
sorry, I have actually come across ancient whistles. I mean, the Anunnaki actually used lutes, I think they were called. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's a huge thing in the whistle things which I wasn't aware of. So to see a carving like that with a whistle on, it's amazing.
Yeah, to hollow out stone like that and keep it tuned, and I mean, it's not something you would just sell for $500 or $400. It would take a lot of love and effort, and that's the thing. Like the price of these pieces were very low, and I didn't think it would be legal to own them because they're antiquities. I contacted the anthropology and archaeology department down there in Mexico, and they sent me a letter that was 6 pages long that was released in 2017 that stated that anything depicting an alien or a spaceship was deemed modern and legal regardless. So that's how they're getting away with selling all this stuff if it is real or for whatever purpose.
Did you hear of the ICA Stones? I think that was Mexico, and the guy that found them. Do you know
Yep.
about the ICA Stones?
The different dinosaurs and
Yeah,
reptilians and yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. There's so many different ones as well.
He's
Mexico
got.
has a lot of really interesting um, encounters and tales. You go to Tula and look at the history of the pyramid there of Quetzalcoatl and the story of the Atlanteans. It's interesting to hear the story of Atlanteans in that part of Mexico because in ancient cuneiform tablets, Enki is said to tell Thoth that he was going to Mesoamerica to seed new civilizations. And the fact we see stepped pyramids and similar language and cosmology, weapons, smelting, etc., that was given to these people somewhere, somehow they acquired all this knowledge. It's very well possible that's where.
Could we go back to the bracelet? Someone's mentioned the
Yeah,
bracelet. Cherry did.
yeah. This is a really, if you look at the relief tablet carvings from Sumeria, you'll see the Anunnaki wearing these bracelets, and it looks almost identical to this. And at first, I thought it was definitely no way that this could be original. But looking at the creation and the way it is really quite amazing. It
Does
has
it fit,
12 steps as well, which is peculiar.
sorry, does it fit your hand, or is it made for a smaller or larger wrist? If it
Yeah,
is.
it can go on my wrist here. I'll put it on there real quick. It's interesting. Like you put your wrist in there, and I mean it's pretty safe. Like I don't know. You'd think with just a clasp like that it would be not fitting. Now I can't get it off. Hang on, I got to set you guys down for 1 second. I don't want to break this thing. There we go. People have been asking me to put this thing on the last few lives I've done, and I normally don't put it on. So
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
no, no. Man, some of this stuff really has off vibrations and kind of makes you wheezy or a lightheaded feeling, and so I don't really like to push my luck with too much of it. There's you know things depicted and rituals depicted that opening portals and all kinds of
Have
strange
you,
things that I don't want to be responsible for.
from the people that you get them from, do you get any sort of backstory as whether they were
Oh yeah,
worshipping or whether they were just sort of found in
big
somewhere?
time. Yeah, I've worked with over 30 different families down there, and really trying to set them up against not necessarily set them up against each other per se, but set them up in terms of being able to get the truth out of it. And what I found is that the stories were all the same. And what's really strange is Abuelos and Tula are 800 miles apart, and the fact that these pieces are in such unique iconography and design, yet they tell the same story with different languages. That's peculiar to me. You can see like some of these symbols here is a type of language on these Tula pieces, but then I'll show you over here. This is a language from Huelo Stilisco. And these
Uh,
symbols, there's over 10,000 of them been documented. People like Nassim Harriman and Greg Braden, Klaus Dona, Scott Woltar. They've done a lot of work in Abuelos to try to decipher this sort of stuff, and they've got ceramic thermoluminescent dates as well as carbon dates that coincide with the same ranges, which is something of interest to me. The carbon date was not good enough for me to believe this stuff, but seeing the ceramics as well is definitely key.
The the language that you were just showing, is
Mhm.
there any have you come across the same language but not on your type of artifacts, but maybe just on a stone wall somewhere and on a temple or anything like that?
I asked a lot of different archaeologists. There was a lady, she actually worked in Saudi Arabia for 14 years. And before that, she worked in Romania. And she reached out to me and said that she had seen these symbols on the walls in Romania, as well as in certain places in Saudi Arabia. And she couldn't really say more about it. She was under strict confidentiality agreements with her research and couldn't release any pictures or anything like that for me. But it was interesting that she came to me. She also said that she's a native Hawaiian, and down there in Hawaii they have similar type of beliefs and understandings in their ancient cultures. So it's interesting, and some of these, like I'm showing all these little statues. I want to show how big these are next to my finger here real quick because some of these are literally. I really wish my focus was better. I apologize. Usually it's
That's
better than this.
interesting because the cylinder seals, some of them are literally less than an inch tall. So to see carvings again, very very small is good to see. Also, what I was just going
Yeah.
to throw out there was the images carvings that you just showed where it had um, again possible writings.
Hmm.
Have you looked to see whether any of the symbols that you can see on your carvings match anything, for example, on the Roswell I-beam? I don't know how much you know of the Roswell incident, but there's online you can see the some of the images that was reported that was on an I-beam, basically a beam that would have went in the craft that's got so basic alien symbols. I was just wondering whether there's any match between what's on yours and what's on, for example, that I-beam.
I haven't actually. So there's so many. They don't repeat, and there's no like specific order that they're in, and so it's really hard. Um, they're very very unique. I did see there was a crash, I believe in what was it, North Carolina. It's a pretty famous crash that happened, and they recreated the ship, and it had these symbols that they recreated based off of numerous eyewitness accounts, and that was the closest that I'd seen to this language ever before. Um, as far as my favorite one to answer your question, Susie, that's a really, really hard question because, uh, I'm kind of addicted, as you can see here. I really like it's really hard to sell these pieces, and they all just have something to say. Whether it's some of them are probably modern. I'm sure there's lots of moderns down there coming out. We've identified hundreds, but the stuff in this room still are pieces that I have questions about or haven't been deemed as false. You know, these astrolabes are really interesting.
That is good.
I've documented 12 of these, and you see these in Sumeria. What it represents is the North Star in the middle, and then constellations around it. And so you can actually put this into a supercomputer and get a date of when the last time the sky was in this position. So the fact we have 12 of those, it's going to be really interesting to see where they chart up and if they're significant dates and what they might disclose. And you know
One of the people that's watching, his name's Jun, asked a question which I was going to ask something similar, but he's wrote, you should also check if there's any 1.6 gigahertz radio frequency near those things. So, is there any magnetic or radio frequencies that you're aware of that comes off of any of these?
you're in luck.
You come prepared.
I come prepared. I got a Geiger counter. Everybody always asks, are these things radioactive, magnetic? And there's there's changes and fluctuations on the radio side of things, and nothing extreme except on certain pieces. Like you saw that right there, maybe where it just kind of fluttered or fluctuated. You see a lot of that type of stuff, you know. But as far as the electromagnetic side of things, though, that's where it seems to get a little bit more interesting to me. Um, you can see it. It changes greatly per item. Some of them spike, some of them fluctuate. And I mean, a couple, sorry, the glare is horrible. Here we go. Um, so it's strange why there's electromagnetic frequencies that variate. It seems to vary throughout the time of day. Um, so I haven't quite fully understood, anything really about that. I can't really say that that means anything. I've tried to test them outside. I've tried to test them in different areas just to see if there was, interference. But as you could see how close, it was in terms of response, it's hard to think that there would be interference in that, short of a period just between this object and this object.
Brilliant. I was also going to ask, seeing as you've got quite a lot of followers, well done, by the way.
Thank you.
Has
Me too.
anyone, thank you. Has anyone sort of come to you and said, "I've got the same type of things"? In other words, is there other
Yes.
collectors out there? And
Oh, yeah. Collectors, a lot of people from Mexico have reached out to me. They said, hey, thank you. I've been wondering about this stuff since I was a little kid. I've seen this stuff around. There's mixed reviews on what people say and believe. And so people are really thankful in most cases, just the fact that the information is being documented. Um, and yeah, it's. Also, I mean, as far as collectors go, yeah, I'm putting together a museum. So we're,
oh,
we're
wow.
we're digitizing all these pieces. I'm doing a 60 megapixel photogrammetry, which is a 3D scan essentially, and then it'll be a high resolution 3D scan that you can go into and zoom way way into, etc.
Oh,
And
I'm interested in that.
yeah, so we right now we wanted to kind of do it on the metaverse with NFTs because the NFTs are decentralized, and so once we get these items on the blockchain, it should prevent any you know modifications or deterrence in terms of governments or places like that. Because right now the government says all this stuff is fake, and there's a large documentary being produced by Gen 6 Productions, and it's going to show start to finish digs on all of these things. Like a lot of these pieces in this room are from that expedition, and you'll be able to see that stuff being unearthed with 4K, high quality drones. Everything they documented it really really carefully to show this, and that's when I really started to buy in and started to buy a lot of pieces. Is when they were doing that expedition, and I was seeing 20-foot holes and 10-foot holes and proper teams and and there was also a surge of pieces that hit the market, and that's also something in the if it was being modernly replicated, to have that many pieces hit the market all at once is really uncommon considering they're so unique.
Did you say that you had a piece that was lapis lazuli?
Yep,
That's
believe
interesting.
so.
I might be wrong, but as far as I'm aware, it only comes from Afghanistan. So for Mexico to have that and then them carve it, obviously the Anunnaki literally took lapis lazuli with them wherever they went. From everything, you just got to read the ancient tablets. So it kind of it's a good thing to have that because it helps sort of validate the speciality of the
And it might
stone.
not be lapis. It doesn't have the similar patterning. Like I say, I almost thought it was resin because it didn't have the inclusions. I wish I could get the macro view to show you, but yeah, it's interesting. So I haven't had a gemologist confirm or deny on that stone. So, but
Does
yes,
it?
things like that. I've seen skulls that were carved coming out of Guerrero that were lapis, and I said the same thing. Like that doesn't seem right at all for the location. But as you say, in small quantities, especially really high quality ones like that on that piece over there, it's possible that those were, brought or imported, traded. It's hard to say.
So I can see sort of the stereotypical alien face, but did you have anything with sort of either carved on there or an actual skull itself of an elongated skull? I'm just interested to know.
I don't have any elongated skulls. I do have something like this, though, that's quite interesting. Let me pull it out of the safe here. Give me 1 second. It's I don't know if you're familiar with the Rhodope or the Rhodope mountains in Bulgaria. Back in 2001, they had this skull that they had found there, and multiple really high-end scientists studied this thing, and they couldn't match it to any current living thing in the fossil record or prehistoric animal. They sent it off for DNA testing, and it went missing. And so 20 plus years go by, and here we are researching this in Mexico, and the guys send me this saying, hey, we found this, and it's got the right kind of carvings, the angelic beings, elongated heads, and it looks just like the one from the Rhodope Mountains. I've had multiple bone experts look at this, and initially the conclusion is that it was probably a cow skull that's been heavily modified. However, there's extra holes here and here that don't exist in a cow, and since then we've actually got 13 of these specimens, and this one as well.
Oh wow!
And they also have these extra holes, which isn't consistent. So it's interesting. We're going to do carbon dating on them here. I just actually paid for the tests, and so in like 2 weeks' time, we'll get to see how old this is. This is a verified one that came out, and this one here, I believe, is authentic in terms of its age. It could be a cow skull still, and it might have been something that they used to worship or do rituals. Tula was known for this type of mutilation and animal sacrifice, human sacrifice. So it's definitely possible that that's what that was. But it's interesting, here I'm going to turn this light off and show you guys. A lot of these pieces are inlaid very intricately with UV reactive, substance of some form. It's not going to show as well because it's daylight here, but at nighttime, these things are, really glowing.
I'm dying to ask. Sorry, when the people, your handlers or whatever you want to call them, that the supply you these things, do they mention anything like that it lights up under UV?
No. In fact, what's strange is I had collected almost 200 pieces, and no one had ever said a single thing almost a whole year. And my wife, she makes marbles and does borosilicate glasswork, and so we have this light. It's a UV, and you hit the glass with it. Some of it has uranium and stuff in there that makes it glow. And so one day I'm sitting there at the table, and I'm hitting this piece, and all of a sudden I noticed the corner of this pine cone, which was sitting on the table, was sitting there glowing, and then it just opened up a can of worms. Inevitably, I ended up sending a couple of these lights down to the people I was getting the pieces from, just so they could test their collections.
Wow.
And that was the interesting part too, is the people down there, it wasn't just, oh, buy this piece. Some of them it is, don't get me wrong, but I would say a majority of the families actually collect these pieces, and like some of them, they won't sell you even for, really high offers. Like I've had to really go rounds with them, which is, that's just an interesting thing. If it was known down there that it was all false, people would probably be quick to take the money,
Susie Q has asked, what's your favorite piece?
Yeah, it's so hard to try to even think of that. I have a Jed pillar. I don't have it in here right now, but it's definitely the most energetic piece that I have. It's tough. I can't say. I love them all.
Clock Ticking has asked, do the green ones represent black? So I'm guessing, skin color black.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't answer that. I mean, it's a really interesting theory, and with the Olmec stories of where they originated from, and that possibly they were taken over from Africa. That I mean, it could be. I don't know.
Sherry's asked, do the small ones have any holes in them?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Every one of these is made to be like a bead. I'm not going to be able to focus in very well because the hole is so small, but you might be able to see it up there. Oops. Yeah, you can see it barely there. Yeah, and the drill work is just amazing. I mean, the fact that every one of these little statues is different. I've documented over 4,000 of them. It's almost as if they used them as a currency or something.
Interesting. So,
Yeah, Cherry. I mean, it's. I'm not saying that for sure, but there is things in the cuneiform tablets from Assyrian finds that do state that Thoth brought over African tribes to Mexico, and that could have been the origin of the Olmecs. The Olmecs had some pretty crazy stoneworking technologies and abilities and beliefs. So it's an interesting thing to study. I don't know if it's true or not, though.
Susie's wrote many pieces look like they have DNA pattern on depicted on them. Have you
Yeah.
noticed that?
Oh, big time. Yeah, the most common things: DNA, Saturn, um, the hybrid or states of duality, scaled, and lots of that type of stuff. I'll turn this light back on, but the DNA manipulation as well as experiments like operating room type scenes that are carved into these stones are very common and show a lot of different, rapid evolution, I guess you could say.
Susie's just asked, what's the most peculiar item in your collection?
Peculiar. Well, I got a peculiar one here. This I'll pull this pyramid out of here and show you. This one fits the peculiar
Okay.
definition for sure. It's a pyramid, and then on the bottom, it has this square here. I'll leave that out for a second. It has a key. The key wasn't originally with it. It was just the pyramid and the square. And the square, if you notice, has a distinct, cut here, as well as a hole. And it only goes in one way. I just lucked out and got it on the first try. and and you put the key up in there, which the key was actually found later in the same area. He came to me and was like, "Hey, we found a key for that thing," and it's like, a key. And it's like, "Yeah, we're almost positive it's for that piece." And sure enough, I mean, but it'll lock it in there. I'm not going to
So
turn it
let's
upside down, but
say they're fakes. So if hypothetically, if they're fakes, whoever's done it's done an amazing job.
yeah, yeah, not just on the work, but the story and keeping it, consistent with ancient texts and all these different things on levels that are, stuff that I'd never even put together. I really had to bust out the books and start reading about history. J.J. Hertog has been an extremely good influence on a lot of this, Billy Carson stuff, and Zachariah Stitchin. Just been trying to just understand a little bit more about these ancient things and actually going biblically to texts that are no longer honored by the church has been really, really fascinating too, because why they took some of these books out of there, it's starting to maybe make sense. Yeah, Cherry, I think some are definitely, like, I'll show you an example here. This type of stone, it's got all these pores and surface pores, but if you break it in half, the center is just a white. So it seems like it's been baked. And then you look at one of these here, and you can see the type of carving on it is much different in terms of relief. And I think that this box, there's a good chance that it could be a reproduction because it's not the right type of stone. All these that have this porous stone, is consistent with the dig videos from Gen 6 and everything else. So there's definitely fakes out there, and we've exposed hundreds of them on our website.
June has asked, has any government entity ever reached out to you regarding your artifacts?
No, nope. I have no knocks or men in black at this point. A good friend of mine, another collector, he sent Mexico $150,000 in like a 30 or 40-day period, and they showed up instead of the DHL courier. It was the FBI and Homeland Security. They raided his home. He had over 900 of these pieces in his home, and they didn't touch a single one of them. They thought that he was, peddling drugs or weapons or something because of the amount of money he sent to Mexico. They wanted to make sure. So that's the closest to any story like that. And I think the reason they don't is obviously if these things are real and there's a reason to control the narrative that if they were to raid or acknowledge these pieces, then they're going to be looked at as more of a authentic type of a situation, and I don't think that's what they want if they are real.
Well, that's
just like the
cool.
Grand Canyon, that whole thing with Kincaid and the Smithsonian, where he said to have found all these caves down there, and they contained Egyptian writing and iconography, giants and sarcophagi. It's the same exact stuff that we're seeing here, in terms of description. That is.
Yeah, I noticed the sort of the alien greys seem to be, dare I say, it, caricatures, if I pronounce that right, as opposed to it being absolutely spot on. Because each one of those looks slightly different. One had a very long pointed chin and things.
Yes,
Do you think
very
they're
much, especially
stylized
with these.
as opposed to fact? Do you know what I mean? Stylized because of the way that looking at them, they look stylized, like as you say, like almanacs would, compared to
hmm
Sumerian would have done it as close as possible to the realistic
Yeah,
image.
and with these statues, you get to see so many depictions, and some of them look more like the Rapa Nui or the Moai there on Easter Island.
Yeah,
There's
I was
some that are
thinking that.
reptilians. So I wonder if, in the Bible it states before the flood that there was countless species that were abominable creations or whatnot. And so I'm wondering if there was, before this flood, all these different things, or it's just hard to believe that someone would be so original as to make 5,000 unique races, you know?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah. I mean,
lot of
that's what.
thinking. Never found a
Yeah.
duplicate ever.
Oh right, okay. I mean, that's what blows my mind with the ICA stones. It says, I think, what is it, 44,000 of them,
hmm
so, and they're just carved in, whereas these are, you know, the Ica stones are just stones with carvings, literally
Yeah, this
carved into
has
them. Whereas these
history
are,
and language and yeah.
yeah, there's got so much more detail to each one of these.
hmm
So you said
Yeah, it's
there was one
interesting.
with a portal.
Say,
One look
say that again.
you said one looked like it had a portal just drawn on it or carved on it.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Multiple have like for instance, this right here looks kind of like some sort of portal.
I mean, you're probably familiar with the doorways that go to nowhere in
Uh-huh.
Teotihuacan and places like that. Um, did that actually move? The one in the
Yes.
middle.
Yep.
Wow. I
All
mean,
the rings move. It's and what's strange with this piece is well, it's got the flower of life on the bottom base down there, but even things like this little ring, for instance, that they made to go over this. Um, it, like if it was not primitive, I think they would have just sawed that flat instead of making this. And like I say, this stone is this porous stuff. I believe this is a fired piece. Um, of pottery or ceramic type. And the mineral analysis of this is quartz and calcite. So to make ceramic out of quartz and calcite is, it's usually not. So I hope to do thermoluminescent testing on these boxes and see if we can't get a date. Um, if they've been fired. It's not your typical
Wow,
stone that would be ceramic, but it's definitely possible it might show when the last time it was fired.
that'd be cool to know that.
It would be
Stephen
huge.
Truth Seekers wrote, ever had anything strange happen?
Just really weird dizziness and off feelings, but nothing out of the ordinary, dreams or anything like that. I haven't noticed. Yeah, it definitely looks a lot like the contact thing. That was what my first thought was too. The jars with the cones. Hmm. Yeah, some of
Yeah.
these scopes are quite interesting too. I'll show you, like for instance, this piece here. And this weighs like 35 pounds or so. It's all stone, and it's got a hole going through it.
Wow,
You're gonna
that's
barely
not.
be able to see, but down in the middle, you can see something's kind of dividing the pathway, and about right here in the middle, there's a quartz crystal that's positioned in there, and there's no drill marks or any. I don't understand how they got that in there.
Wow.
Really bizarre.
Have you seen the videos on TikTok where the guy's holding a stone and he puts it up against a mirror and you can't see the mirror,
Yes.
you can't see the stone anymore? What's your
Looks
thoughts
kind of like
on that?
this. Yeah.
Yeah, similar to
Um,
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and this doesn't do that. I've tried all those things with it, just to see, right? And yeah, I don't know what my thought is. I mean, is it possible? Absolutely. I mean, magnetism and what stones and crystals can possess vibration wise. I mean, it's definitely possible. It's all analog equipment that he's using to influence that stuff with. So
Yeah. Fair point.
it's an old tube tube. It's not a LED by any means. So. Yeah, it's interesting. I would love to see that piece in person. I mean, I think it's just a private collector that has it, so it's not in a museum or anything.
Someone's wrote, my credit is frozen. Has wrote, has red mercury in it to not be seen in mirror. I
Interesting.
didn't know that. Yeah, I've not heard that
Mer
before.
Mercury is a pretty interesting substance. I've started to look into it more, um, just because of its anti-gravitational properties and things. It's pretty interesting.
Someone called Donna has wrote, has he ever thought about contacting a psychic who has psychometric, Donna, a
Yeah,
psychometric
psychometrically. Yeah.
ability?
I, I definitely haven't been personally in contact. I have a lady who wants to do channeling on one of these pieces specifically, and I've okayed it. I don't try to do that too much, but a good friend of mine has a large collection, and he's been taking these pieces in front of channelers, and he's actually going to write a book. He's going to have like 30 or 40 different people channel the same objects that don't know each other, different parts of the world, different parts of the countries, and then write a book about and thesis what they came up with, collectively, in terms of what was the same, what was different. And so I think that'll be an interesting science project. But I try to stay away
So
from it. I don't know. It scares me.
just while people are joining, because I'm hopefully, if you don't mind, I'll put this on YouTube
Oh,
for
cool. Yeah,
people to
okay.
follow me, and I'll put it on my Spotify and whatever else. It comes up as a
Absolutely.
video now on Spotify. Um, but your website, you have a website. If you want to give a little plug to that while people are listening.
Yeah, it's aliencarvings.com. And I created it just because as I started to research this for myself, my phone became, inundated with thousands of pictures, and I was sending them to people just to show them what I was seeing, and it just became a nuisance. So I was like, I just need to put all this on a website, and now we're here.
No, it's amazing. So how long ago was the first one that you collected?
The first one that I saw was about 3.5 years ago, and then I started to kind of research it, and I didn't actually collect one for probably a year and a half after that, and finally I broke down. I went on eBay and was like, okay, I'm gonna see if these ones on eBay are real or have things that make me question it. I definitely take it a little more seriously. And sure enough, I started to meet some of the sellers and ask questions. And I wanted to see the dig videos and see the stuff coming out of the ground. And they offered me to come down there. I started working with Linda Moulton Howe. We were
Absolutely.
organizing an
Yeah.
expedition to go down there,
I was going to
and then
mention Linda.
COVID hit. Say that again.
I was going to mention Linda because obviously, to me, she's one of the foremost experts in overall everything, not
Yep.
just one particular
And she
subject.
doesn't know. She doesn't know. She doesn't have a yes or a no. I mean, she knows some of it's definitely probably not real, and but from her understanding is there's definitely a possibility that some of it is, and it's just really tough to like why isn't it on Ancient Aliens? Was my thing. Like why can't they debunk this on that show? Like it would be a perfect thing to either yay or nay, and there's a lot more to it in terms of the safety in Mexico, getting camera crews down there. Um, you know, it's a
Well,
really dangerous place down there right now.
I mean, what's his name? Giorgio. He had the Roswell Stone, and he went and got it. Not carbon dated, but various different tests done it. So
Yep.
he didn't have to, even though he did go to the scene, but he didn't have to go to the scene. So I'm just thinking, you know,
So here's why they don't do that with this, is because if they prove that this stuff is authentic, then it basically ties them to a crime because now, it's all of a sudden a piece of history and a antiquity that's not legal to have outside of Mexico. So it becomes this whole legal problem,
hmm.
and that's where the universities they say they don't want anything to do with it because if it's real, then they're supporting the unethic digging, and so it needs to be done by people who are blessed by the country, and the country's saying it's false, so it's really hard to get them to do that. I actually have a good buddy right now who's testifying in front of Congress in Mexico, and they just recently, here in the last 2 weeks, appointed him to spearhead the research into this and to make sure that this stuff gets protected by the archaeology and anthropology department. So that department is in. They have thousands of pieces. They don't show them in the museums because there's no place for them yet, and so that's what needs to be documented. Cambridge did a big study in Tula Hidalgo in 2021, said that it was an epicenter for archaeology and that there 2/3 of the city was still buried. And it's likely buried there due to a volcanic explosion that happened in the Younger Dryas period. Let's see the
Hmm.
jars on the bottom shelf. Oh, they're not jars. They're large cups. I'll show you. These things weigh about 100 pounds. They're a drinking cup, maybe for a giant. I don't know, but the cap that goes on here I thought was really peculiar too, to keep the bugs out or whatever. It weighs about 60 pounds.
Wow. I'm just reading people's messages right now.
Yet Tula Hidalgo and Abuelos de Jalisco is where these pieces are from, Mark. And actual technology. I mean, think how I mean, yeah. Here's something. I don't know if you're familiar. There's a stone out of Iraq, or it's a lens actually that was found. It's the Narubi lens, I believe, or the Narabi lens. And so this telescope was found in Tula. It's three pieces, and it has this lens here, and it has about a 2 or 3x magnification, um, and it has this strange inclusion going across it. So, I mean, when I first saw this thing, I was just in disbelief, and and then all of a sudden I see this lens from Iraq, and it's almost identical, and it's dated at 5,000 years old. So it also has a similar, thing, and they thought that it was maybe the first telescope. So it's really interesting to see it go back that far. Uh, and then now it's possible. There's chess games and different board games that have been found, like this one, for instance. I'll show you. These are the pieces for it here. You can see they're all individually carved and different. Some of them are like obelisks and rook type pieces, little pyramids. And here's the board for it. And I mean, it's a game I've never seen, you know?
That's a lot of detail, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is all on a piece of quartz. This thing glows solid green.
Wow.
It's actually a calcite quartz combination. A piece of it broke off. We were able to see the inside of it. It was pretty mind blowing. But to come up and I've seen 8 or 10 different games now that aren't chess. I've seen a few chess boards as well. I've seen a lot of fake chess boards recently come up as well too. So that's definitely a concern. But these ones that are these games that I've never seen is odd that they would try to produce this unknown game to try to sell. You know, it'd be easier just to make it chess or something. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the detail from from the amount of work that goes into some of these, I can't imagine them sitting there with tools. I mean, you even said some of them sort of glued in some way.
Yeah, yeah. All this red material is glue. So these are mosaics of this is one stone, this is another stone, that's a stone. So these pieces are put together like a puzzle. And even like this sphere, you can see it's all put together with this red glue. But to get this sphere like this is, and you can see the orientation of the gems. Like they're not perfect compass orientation. It's not a perfectly round sphere. So, you can see the humanistic details, I guess, is what I'm trying to point out.
Stephen Truthseeker wrote, "That's a spirit board for contacting spirits."
Interesting. Yeah, this piece as well, I thought was similar to like if you
A
look at
Ouija
the
board.
old Ouija board. Yeah, it's got the.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's got the centerpiece and the point to point to the whatever. Yeah, or someone earlier wrote, I think Sherry or someone wrote, "I Horus," maybe.
Yeah, Horus is an interesting topic because in Greek, his equivalent is Apollo, and that's Zeus's son. So this whole Horus story is really, Zeus was this god, and Horus was actually crucified and died very similar to Jesus, and was revered very similar to as Jesus. So it's interesting to see those two. I think we actually talked about this at one point on a post. my
Yeah.
my my concerns about this.
So
Little
what?
things too, like you can see the light through the stone there in the center. So it's like it turns into a moon when you put a light behind it, or a sun maybe. I think it's a moon because of the holes.
With these artifacts, is as any have you heard any stories that they found something of a building with similar designs or things
Yeah.
on it?
Yep. Yeah. In fact, I posted a video. It's pretty poor video, but it's them. About 6 years ago, they were digging in a basement of one of their houses there in Tula City, and as they were digging it out to expand, they came onto this concrete or thick stone slab, and they were able to go underneath and out like by the street and dig down and go under there, and they opened it up. Eventually, the police came, but there's video of it, and it's got Egyptian hieroglyphs and I mean, and it's clearly the type of quarried stone from Tula. You can absolutely tell that it's in Tula. It's not Egyptian stone by any means, but yet it's full of really. I mean, it looks like a tomb from King Tut almost in terms of the way the walls are done and stuff like that. Not
Wow.
quite as fancy as that, but in terms of the iconography, it's spot on.
Well, I'd love to go there. Someone's wrote, I
Yeah.
can't pronounce the username, NHAT. I had to translate it, but he or she has wrote, "It all works when you meet its owner," which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, probably. I thought that's a really good way to put that. How these pieces, how there's this UV reaction. Obviously, it brings up the question. I mean, you can't just go put this in the sun and then expect it to get dark really, really quick to see it. And to query all these stones, it's not just the luminescence that you see on these pieces that were inlaid in there, but a lot of these stones are actually here. I can show you an example. They're phosphorescently glowing as well, like this piece of
Oh
green
wow.
banded calcite. But they select these pieces, I think, because of their UV things. And so it's like, how did they get them to glow? And
Oh,
you
yeah.
can see that one goes from green to blue.
Wow.
Um, and so my theory is this: is a lot of these things depict angelic beings. In many ancient texts, angelic beings are said to have a halo. Even the Anunnaki were said to have a splendor about them when they would enter an area, like it would be a light of lights, like the sun. And so maybe this halo that's depicted contains not just normal light, but also ultraviolet light. And so when those beings were around, these things just lit up like light bulbs, because this is just a little handheld battery powered light. But what they could have emit, just like the sun, how it's so much more powerful than any flashlight we have, maybe their halo is too, and turn these pieces into something that we can't even replicate. I mean, I don't have the power UV wise to charge them.
Mm. But sorry, someone's just wrote the crystal ball tech. Going back to that crystal ball.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm just trying to use logic here. What would they have used the ball inside that container for? 'Cause a lot of these things here, obviously, we have no idea what they would be used for. But I'm just
Mm-hmm.
trying to put modern humans' knowledge in. Why would they build such things?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things in black magic and dark arts, witchcraft and stuff. Like I'll show you this board here. Um, that they did grid arrangements. They worked with energies and vibrations and stuff like that on levels that I don't know if we're up to snuff with because of history and the way things have been controlled. And obviously, you look at the witch hunts and all of the oppression of paganism, for what purpose, and maybe that's why. Maybe there is magic, maybe there is things that are energetic that I mean, well, there obviously is, but on a whole nother level.
Just
So
to let
so these
everyone
these
know.
pieces could be yeah, sorry.
So I was just going to say, just to let everyone know, you do actually do your own live chats yourself. So if people want
Yep.
to follow Alien Carvings,
And
do
I've been
so.
posting copies of all of them, so it doesn't have the chat, but it has me talking and all the pieces on YouTube at Alien Carvings as well. Just in case TikTok goes down, I'm
Yeah,
trying to put my content elsewhere as well.
no, it's amazing. It's good that you actually show it because I could imagine some people not wanting to show it for
Oh,
some
I've got
reason.
enemies out there because I show this stuff. Like some of these guys are, they're frustrated because I'll be offered pieces and maybe I won't buy them, but I'll still post them and then they'll buy them and they're upset that I posted it. And it's crazy. I don't know why people wouldn't want to show this art, even if it's a 1% chance that it's legitimate. The 1% here is definitely worth at least understanding the story that's trying to be conveyed, if it is, possibly our origin.
It's
The fit and finish of some of this, like I'm trying to get this cross out of here. You can see how tight it is into this box. Like the everything fits so snug. Like you can't put that in upside down. You can't even put it in this way. It won't fit in there, right? It won't close. The box won't. It has to be just like that. So everything is really specific, which is another reason I think it was done wet, um, or as a mud and then fired in a kiln, because to get that kind of tolerance is insane. You think with tools,
have
especially if
you
they didn't have Dremels.
have you heard of anything that I doubt if you would have been able to get it simply because of the material, but have you heard of anything done in that area in gold?
Oh yeah, no, I've got a few gold pieces here. I'll show you.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, and what's really specific about it, so there's gold leaf, like these pieces here are gold leafed. see if I can focus in better on it here. So that's one type of gold, and then there's this type of gold, which is a gold inlay. You can see it's a pyramid with the eye, and then the bracelets. There's also a bracelet down here that you can see as well. And so what's interesting about this gold is I have a XRF guy that comes and he tests it all, and it's all different alloys, and none of it's pure. Some of it has silver, some of it has zinc, some of it has copper. I've even found one of the rings that we have has rhodium, which is extremely expensive. It's like 3 times the price of gold. So it's really bizarre to see that unrefined, and that just all leads in. And what's also cool, because it's an unrefined gold, none of it exceeds like 16 carats. Depending on where you hit the XRF, some of it's 14, some of it's 12, some of it's 9. I mean, the variation is heavy. I think this one was done with a paint. You can see in certain areas, it's kind of like a leaf, but it's on there much different.
Well, so I was just reading the questions again.
Yeah, yeah.
Someone's wrote, Stephen Truth Seekers wrote, I was going to say these artifacts look like they've been underwater, maybe the Great Flood, question mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the way the silt in the ground is, we post a lot of dig videos. People are like, the ground is too soft. There's no way that's 10,000 years old, etc. But when you look at the type of ground, it absolutely could be volcanic, kind of like Mount Vesuvius and Pompeii. Or it could be some sort of flood where it brought in a lot of silt, because it's a lot of silt and not packed very tightly. Yeah, Susie, I've asked a few people. Mr. Shock was the one I wanted to see if he could, give me a conclusion. I wasn't able to get any real significant translations. I mean, certain symbols like that's Thoth or this is water or stuff like that. Definitely, but as far as any direct messages or translations, because it's not uniform in terms of like columns and rows, it's not readable. So what's interesting is in before the fall of Babel, there was different languages, and then God supposedly took our tongues, and so if that's the case, these could be predecessors to those languages, just like the cuneiform here. I'll show you on this Anki statue isn't consistent with normal cuneiform. What's really cool though is if we can get these translated, it looks like it has the symbols matched up on the piece that might translate what those symbols mean and give us, a little tiny Rosetta Stone type of an experience there. And that's what I'm hoping, is that some of the symbols can be translated like planets. We found Saturn with specific symbols around it, so we believe to say that those are related to Saturn, but it's tough. A lot of this language is just not consistent with modern versions of those languages. And when I say modern, I mean last 6,000 years.
The amount of little grey images that you've got on your artifacts, has you heard any stories that someone from that same region where all these artifacts have come from has found a small skeleton of an alien body? I'm just, because there's so many.
Absolutely. Brian Forrester is a really great example. If you follow Brian's Instagram, he does a lot of work out of Lake Huitzo in Mexico, which is another area that's producing pieces like this, and he's posted some pretty strange bodies. I've also Dr. Pablo Enrique Garcias. He's really deep. He buys most of the organic specimens that are found down there. Everybody knows he buys them and studies them. He's got 3-finger beings and weird beings that look similar to the Nazca mummies in terms of their petrification and or cured process, that whatever they underwent to become like that. So it's interesting to see the similarities between Peru and Mexico on some of these things.
Um, sorry, I was just Stevens wrote, "Took our tongues means the loss of speeches." That's regarding the
Yeah,
Tower of Babel there.
yeah, yeah.
So
It's interesting, like the one language or the language of light, I think, or the language of God or whatnot, was supposedly taken from us at that point, and that's where all the different dialects came from.
hmm. Did you? Sorry, Susie's wrote. Did you say they come? They all come from around Mexico.
Yes, all the pieces I've shown today are from Mexico, from just a couple different localities mostly. I do have pieces, like I say, from Guerrero and Lake Cuitzeo as well, but I'm not deep into the study of those pieces just because there's not as much to go off of in terms of, these boxes might be thermoluminescent testable, so they might yield better data. All of the glue and technique, those pieces, they don't have that same love, I guess, invested, but they're obviously of the same type of story and depict very similar things. So
So what's next for you? Because if you've got this amount already, that's a hell of a lot. And I know you said you're going to try and create some sort of digital museum, but
mhm.
what's I mean, are you addicted to collecting now, or are you going to sort of say, okay, I've got enough, or what's your plans for your
I've
future?
only bought 10 pieces in the last year, so I haven't really been buying a whole lot. I've been mostly focusing all my capital into inflation and research. Inflation's been the most expensive part of this process and slowed me down quite a bit versus where I was here, a couple of years ago. But yeah, I just really just trying to research it now, and there's, like I say, so many different possible avenues of fakes. Mostly focusing on trying to expose those and find the differences between the real ones and the fake ones, so we don't lose our history as all fake. Because I think that's where it's going if someone doesn't really start documenting this stuff and getting it situated. Because there's obviously a huge market for it, even on the fakes, and so uh, it's scary that our history could be getting skewed.
What's I don't want to ask you what the dearest one is because obviously that's your personal thing, but what's the cheapest one that you've bought, if you don't mind me asking?
These things here usually sell, if you buy like 1,000 of them, you can get them for, 15, 12 bucks a piece or something like that. So it's 25 bucks is how much I sell them for usually. And they're definitely the least expensive, and they have considerable detail for what they are. But there's a lot of them. Like I say, they might have been used as like a currency or something, you know.
Do you actually sell them yourself, just the small ones or larger
Yeah,
items?
yeah. I don't sell. I mean, nothing big that's researchable until we get some answers. But yeah, I definitely sell some. My wife essentially said, hey, you've got 550 pieces. Every counter in my house has statues on it. I feel like I'm going to break something. Like you need to do something. So that's where I put together this room, and I mean, I've got stuff all over the place because some of it you just can't store in a safe because it's too big or you know hard to handle. Hopefully, we can get some of this stuff into a safe place, or at least prove something, or get museums and stuff on board with at least creating a safety net for this stuff. Because I mean, a lot of it I don't even want in my house because it's so breakable. I've got a 1 year old, so
Well, say no more.
it's
Susie's
scary.
wrote,
Yeah.
Susie's wrote, as it's curious to see the mixture of Egyptian, Mayan, etc. motifs. Very curious. Yeah, I was thinking that because obviously you had an Enki thing you was just showing, as well as
Yep.
obviously sort of
Yep.
almanac stylish
And this is
faces.
Anki and his fish thing here. Which is interesting too with the Dogon people of Africa and the Nomo and the similarities between Enki and how much astrological cosmology that they had, 3400 BC when the Greek scholars arrived there and documented that they knew of the elliptical orbit of Sirius B and charted the dates and stuff that they said that they celebrated with this festival. And in 1993, I think with I forget if it was Hubble or radio. Somehow we finally proved that Sirius B even existed. I mean, it took us that long. So it's interesting to see that similarities with these aquatic, almost mermaid-looking beings. This one here has it as well. You can see the tail here, another fish-type being, and same with this. This one I thought was interesting because it's got a split tail and carries like a pitchfork.
Hey, is that a
So
mermaid?
I think it might be Poseidon or a depiction of Poseidon because of
Okay.
the trident and
Right, yeah. There is I did a whole video documentary on mermaids, and there is um many stories of mermaids with split towels.
oh, interesting. I didn't ever see that before.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that was interesting to see that, because not clearly not many people know that. So for you to have that, whoever, if it was fake, would have had to have known that to have
Bingo.
done that, which is, they
It,
probably don't have internet where these are done, if they are fake. Do you know what I mean? They're not
it's definitely not the people selling them that are making it, that's for sure, because of the historical knowledge required. I mean, it's deep,
Mhm.
and to keep everything consistent yet skew so far from the narrative, um, yeah, it requires serious, serious effort. Let alone, it's definitely not all carved by one person. I mean, just my collection here would be at least one man's lifetime, if not multiple. So, um, you got to think how they were trained to keep all of it consistent, and this language with over 10,000 symbols, how they were able to keep it consistent, because you know how, in preschool and kindergarten, how long it takes to learn how to write properly. These are properly wrote symbols. They're not just scribble. Like, there is definite definition to them, and unique. They're not just one-offs by any means, and that's serious.
Have you come across anything that's like a pictograph of, for example, a crop circle image on any of these artifacts?
Yes. Yep, I'll show you
Interesting.
here. I think I got one pretty close here, maybe. Hmm. Let's see here. Yeah, right here.
Oh,
It
right.
reminds me of one. I don't know if it's one specifically from anywhere, but it's very similar looking
Yeah, it
to,
is, isn't it?
I think, ones that I've seen.
Yeah, it also reminds me of the sort of Nazca line type effect as well.
Yeah, I've seen that on a couple different pieces as well. The little, it looks like a hummingbird, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was one. Yeah. So the one you just picked up, can I have a look at that? Sorry. Uh,
Yep.
yeah. So what's your
So
take
this,
on that?
well, this it seems like a pine cone. However, it actually came on top of a cup. It was a smaller cup, and but the cup unfortunately did not make it in shipment, and was not salvageable. So now I just have the top.
Okay, it's interesting because you're probably aware of the Anunnaki and what appears to be a pine cone shape.
Oh yeah, no, we've got multiple pine cones here. I'll show you, like in this box over here. Um,
Oh wow. Okay, brilliant.
yeah, here, I'll take this lid off. Give me 1 second and pull it out because the depictions on the pine cone are really pretty cool.
As you say, if someone was faking this, they would need to know that the pinecone shape was important enough for someone to buy it as a, do you know what I mean, as a fake sort of thing. They'd have to do
Hmm.
their research on it. And again, there's a DNA, looks like the double helix on the image there. And you've got a smaller one as well. Wow.
Yeah, and it's made out of a crystal. I believe it's calcite. It has a red phosphorescence to it. Um, but I mean, it's a solid crystalline stone. And oh, oops, I turned it upside down. It's got some what seems to be like cuneiform as well. And I sent this to a gentleman over in the UK. He's a cuneiform expert for the British Museum, and he was unable to translate it also.
Hmm. Well, I mean, you got to think if they were separated from Sumeria, for example, which is where majority of the Sumerian cuneiform come from, if they
Hmm.
were separated over, 5,000, 10,000 years, then their own language could have started even using the same style
Oh,
of cuneiform, but in their own language, just because of the time length. I mean, our
bingo.
language has already changed, in the last 200 years, and we've got
Yeah,
things
even just
coming
in
and
50
going.
years or 100 years, you look at like the way that books were wrote in the 1800s versus today, and
Mm.
thee and thus, and yeah, it definitely makes sense. Also, there's like 8 or 6 different variations of cuneiform that we are aware of throughout the years, and so it's evolved a ton as a language in just our period here. So yeah, when you
Mm.
start dealing with 3 or 4 times that in years, yeah, it definitely makes sense.
Amazing. Stephen Truth Seekers wrote, "Are you Dr. Jones?"
It feels like it. That was one of my favorite things when I was a little kid was Indiana Jones, and I watched those movies a lot, and I was always, telling my mom I wanted to go dig up treasure and stuff. So it's really irony that this happened. I mean, this is so far left field from where my life
Mm.
was a couple years ago. It's hilarious. You know.
Mary Love wrote, "You said most of the gold cover pieces had another metal on it.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
said
and it
that,
just depends. It depends on where you test it, but it's all unrefined alloys, I guess is the better way to say it. There's silver, zinc, copper, um, and like I
'cause I was
say,
just
even
reading.
rhodium.
I was just reading. Sorry, I was just reading yesterday, which I do every single day, ancient tablet translations, and I was looking at the gold, and I was in my head always thinking that if they're going to build something or create something, the Anunnaki, they would do
Hmm.
it with just gold. But there's a hell of a lot of tablets where they say gold and silver put together to create whatever it is that they're creating. So it doesn't surprise me now when you say gold and silver together, and probably
Hmm.
other elements as well. So it doesn't surprise me. No, that's good to know
Well,
that.
and when it's taken out of the ground, it has that already in many cases. Like if you find a nugget while you're panning for gold in the river, it's going to contain those things. That's why it's 13 karat or 14
Mm.
carats, and why they have to refine it down to make it 24 or 18 or whatever you're going for. And so that's where those other minerals are at. But the thing is, when you're buying gold, like gold leaf specifically like this, you can go to like any website and try to find gold leaf that's not 24 karat, and you're not going to find it. Like all gold leaf made today is 24 karat. So unless you're doing custom or tapping it out yourself, to find all these different alloys is really unusual. If it was all 14 or if it was all 16, then it would be expected. But wherever you test, like this little egg that he's holding versus his bracer up or his armband, they're completely different alloys.
Mm.
So that's where I'm like, huh, you know.
Yeah, no rhyme or reason to it, is there really? It's for
Well, it's just
someone to
hard to
post it.
hard to buy it because you can't pay someone
Mm.
for gold because it's you pay by the purity, and so if it's 2,000 an ounce, how do you figure it out if all your alloys are different?
Mm. Mm. Susie's wrote, "What's your biggest pieces?"
My biggest piece is a table. It's upstairs. It's a 5-piece table that weighs about 430 pounds, and it's extremely detailed with a lot of story on it. And
How
then
tall is
these.
the table? Sorry, just because obviously the alien body is
I'm gonna
small.
say it's probably 3.5 feet off the ground. I mean, it's fairly tall, although it doesn't sit flat like this table. It sits at I would say, like a 30 or 40 degree slant, which is bizarre because you can't use it for anything. And it's also got like this huge circle cut out of it with, I don't know, it's very interesting.
Wow. Metal detectors wrote, "Which item has the most precious stone or gem?"
As far as gold goes, this cross has the most for sure on one piece. And then gem wise, It really depends on some of these gems because there's ones that seem like it's blue obsidian and they have proper inclusions. And by all the gemologists that I've had look at it, it's definitely not glass or resin. So it's really peculiar. But blue obsidian is extremely, extremely rare. And so that's definitely possibly one of the more valuable. Haven't seen anything, like ruby wise. There's gems that are red and translucent, but I don't think they're ruby. They don't have any glow, which doesn't mean anything, but yeah. Hey, Missy, how's it going?
Um,
Missy's always on, so gotta
oh,
say hi
God.
to her.
Um, so the ultraviolet light that you've got there, which you use, and it's
Hmm.
really cool to see. Um, has anyone gave the ultraviolet lights to the people that digs them up? I know you did say
Yes.
earlier that you want them to, but
Now they go through the caves and the different altars and stuff with the black lights because they'll see traces of it because some of it, the way it's inlaid on, it seems like it's quite the messy process. Like you'll see on here, you can see kind of like there's a little overspray there. Look right here. You can see those little dots of the overspray. So somehow it's being put on. Not necessarily perfect by any means, but pretty close enough to make it glow
but as
really
you
beautifully.
said, when they sold them to you, they didn't use that as a selling point, which means you
Nope.
only found out on your own. So for someone to fake it and go through the aggro of doing that, but not tell you that they've done that
Yeah.
as a selling point.
Super, super off.
Mm.
Yeah, that was where I really started to ask questions. This was before I found this out before I met with the Gen 6 guys, and then, seeing this documentary being made, I definitely have questions. I don't know if it's true or not yet, but everything points to there's a good possibility, which is crazy.
So I'm just reading.
I do have some crystal skulls. Yeah, I've got a few. I've got one that's like a life-size human. This one here is definitely my favorite. It's all inlaid with the green glow as well.
Is that all from one solid piece, do you think? Or
Yeah, it's a natural termination.
has it got the lower jaw on there? Because most of the ones don't have the lower jaw.
Yep.
Because normally they're in two pieces and they put them together. So that's
I've seen the
interesting.
two-piece ones as well from this area. I've also seen one that's like a death mask that's like a full face mask. Um, this one here has a pinned, movable jaw. And the pins are just super archaic in there, the way that it's put on there. I had to really look just to see how on earth they got that to do that.
Again, if it was fake, that's a lot of aggro. They could have just done like the crystal one you just showed us and just had it all in one piece instead of
Hmm.
making two pieces and a mechanism. So there's a lot of aggro.
So this bowl right here, let's see if I can get it to focus. You can see the metallic part there at the top of the cross. There's like three dots of metal that have been inlaid on there, as well as the eye here on these scarabs. And up above it there, he's holding a piece of metal. So it's like to inlay metal into this stone like this, and the metal varies. Most of it's silver, copper, and zinc. It's not gold, but just kind of extra details that seem pointless to do on a replica.
Hmm. Interesting. They used a scarab though.
Yeah, look at there's a Egyptian deity there as well with the snake.
That makes me think it's that was the underworld thing, wasn't it, with the crocodile? Can't remember the name of it off the top
Hmm.
of my head.
I know I can't think of the name ever. It's a different one. It's not easy to remember. Yeah. This pendant here is really great. Actually, I'll put it over here.
Susie just that's so cool, that isn't it? Even if it's fake, that is just so cool.
Uh-huh. You
I'd
can
have
see
to have a
the
light
beads up
over
here.
it.
They
Oh
all
wow.
glow red as well, phosphorescently. So, yeah,
Susie,
once I learned about the black light, oh, sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
go on.
I was just gonna say, once I learned about that, I just had to check. Like I had 15 or 20 pieces, and every single one of them had some sort of UV reaction to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a
What did
table.
Susie say?
Sorry, I was just thinking. Susie's asked you, have you ever done a video on the table? She'd love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's multiple on our feed of it. And I've done a couple lives up there with it's got my chessboard and my table. I'll do one tonight, Susie. I'll go up there and do a live with it. It's always fun.
Um, have you tried the light on the table?
Oh, yeah. And that's the table's crazy because it's not just one color green. Like everything is textured in extreme detail in UV. And it goes from white to yellow to blue to green and it just paints a very vivid picture. I mean, it's all relief. Every ounce of the table has carvings on it. It's pretty crazy.
Um, do you have anything? Because I know obviously we can see sort of an alien shape, but do you have anything where they look like they've got a helmet of any description, like a
Oh
space
yeah,
helmet?
yep. Quite a few different depictions in that scene as well. So like this guy, for instance, here,
Oh wow, that's clever.
and his face mask. If you put a light behind it, it all lights up really neat. You can see this statue it's holding here. This comes out of here,
Oh, that's
and it's natural pressure that holds it. Like they carved it so perfect that it just sits there and holds it. Oh, yeah. I forgot to knock on wood on that one, obviously, but yeah, it holds it really, really well, I guess. And so that's pretty interesting. And like, there's this guy here. Looks kind of like the one that they found in Turkey. There's an astronaut that's kind of similar that has I think it's an onyx mask or something like that. And then
what's underneath his? Sorry, what was underneath his? It looked like a little triangle thing. I was just curious to see.
let me see here. Yeah, there's obsidian inlays on there, and you can see that it's not even at all. Like the top one is shifted to the right dramatically, which I thought was kind of peculiar. A lot of this stuff is really specific, so the fact that it was like that is strange to me. These are both astronaut-looking guys too.
That helmet there, we've all seen on the was it Mayan carvings, where it's got that sort of helmet where it has the front open and you can see inside.
Mm-hmm. So what's strange with this piece, so the red glue that you see that I've showed that they do the carbon dating from that connects all these stones together, this helmet has cracks in it here. You can see this big crack running across. And if you look on the inside, they repaired it. Like this is an ancient repair job, I believe, with the red glue. So it's interesting to see. Um, Not super glue, you know.
Yeah. What's on the belly button of that character? Sorry, around there.
He's holding one of the little egg things that they all in Abuelos, there's these eggs that they all hold or are depicting. Like you can see in the hand here, he's got this egg, and it's found all over in Abuelos. I don't know exactly what it represents specifically, but it's very, very predominant. This big disc
What
is
is that
really pretty
thing?
neat.
Yeah. What do you think that
I
is?
no clue. The inside of it, you can see the light. Like if you hold that up to the sun, you can see the light come through in the middle of it, which is really neat. Um, but no
I mean,
clue.
some of those items like that, they got little sort of holes to hang them on a wall because I'm just trying to figure out whether they would be floor
No,
standing or
no, there's nothing of the nature on that one. It's just a disc, and it's fully, I mean, carved on the other side as well. Mosaic on both sides.
right.
I don't know. This looks like almost like a calendar, or some sort of, oops, you know, device made out of agates and whatnot. Pretty crazy. Some of the
Yeah.
detail, like,
That's exactly what I was just sitting there thinking. I was thinking, you know, it's, it's a lot of brain power to go into getting things that actually fit into things like that you're showing and
hmm
everything. It's a lot of
the finishing work is insane, especially on like a turtle like this. And this turtle, for instance, here has a few really unique things about it. You know, obviously, the shell comes off of here, and this guy that rides in here, this is carved out of one piece of stone. He's holding this guy. You can see I mean, it's almost touching his head. But the fact they carved this out of one piece without that little thing breaking off is
Mhm.
insane. And this is a functional pipe. You can smoke out of his here, and this is a pipe.
I'm just trying to figure out what the symbol because obviously there's the story of the turtle, the creation story of the turtle where it
Oh yeah.
carries
Plus,
and
Thoth
stuff.
created the first instrument, supposedly out of the turtle shell when he washed up the shores as Hermes. He created the first lute and the first instrument, supposedly.
Susie's asked, "Is that documentary out yet? What's it called?"
It's not out yet. The trailer is our first sticky video on our feed. It's called the Alien and Egyptian Connection. It's from Gen 6 Productions, and it should be out here sometime before the summer.
How would one watch it?
It's going to be available on, you just go to gen6productions.com, I guess would probably be the easiest way to find it when it comes out. I'm sure he'll have it on some platforms, but a lot of platforms won't allow it. He tried to get it onto Netflix and stuff like that, but they wanted him to make changes and not to mention certain religious things, and he refused. So,
Sparhawk has wrote, "What's the most bizarre or creepiest piece?"
uh, hmm, I got to dig deep in the thoughts for that one. Hmm.
I would have probably said
That's
the
tough.
skull, just
Yeah,
from.
some of these skulls are definitely creepy for sure. Um, Whether it's a cow or an alien, I don't know, but it's definitely creepy. Some of these dolls like this is definitely got a dark vibe to it. Um, Things like this and this one here, you know, I thought maybe it might be modern of some degree, but it's definitely got a vibe to it as well. That the jaw moves, and it's quite the specimen. All carved out of a seashell. What I thought was interesting and why I bought it, you know, the guy claimed it to be ancient, of course, but the way it's attached to the skull, you really can't tell where the shell touches the bone, which I thought was just amazing work.
Mm. So Lewis has asked, who actually made these? Sorry if we're repeating it, but
Yeah,
what I
it's a
mean,
really
I
good
guess,
question.
I guess what he's probably asking is it humans made it to to do for the sort of aliens, or was it aliens doing it for ego purposes? Because the Sumerians definitely did ego did have an egos, but
I
do
think
you
we're
think
dealing with
humans
ultra
made them?
terrestrials. Like, I think there's extraterrestrials and then there's ultra terrestrials, and So, the grays and these type of beings, I think, were the extraterrestrials, and you've got these other type of beings with these wings, and I'm thinking they're interdimensional beings. So Gen 6 also was given a tip. They were asking all the locals, hey, if anyone has any information about these type of pieces or anything, please let us know. We'll pay you a reward. And this guy came and said, I've been seeing these weird orbs in the jungle. They come every couple nights, and you got to see it. So he took a helicopter out to the jungle where the guy said. He camped there on a hillside about a mile away with a 600 millimeter telephoto lens. And the shots that he captured of these orbs coming in and landing and materializing into what looked to be giants and lizard people and things. I posted it on my feed. You can check it out. I had to look through it quite a few times to really buy into that, but it's absolutely bizarre. So we might be dealing with the fallen or angelic beings, multiple dimensional beings. A lot of the UFO sightings that we see and document, a lot of times the ships just disappear. Like they'll be traveling and then boom, they're gone. And that's really interesting to think maybe it is interdimensional rather than extra, like out of the solar system, interplanetary, I guess.
Susie's given us that name that we needed, the goddess Amet. That was the crocodile one. Thank you,
Oh,
Susie.
yeah. Yeah, thank you. Heck yeah.
Sparhawks wrote something interesting. Looks like the Knights Templar cross found on Oak Island. I'm guessing that's one of
Hmm.
those type things.
Yeah, look at the other side of this one. It definitely has that, I think it's called the Iron Cross or something like that. Templar cross. Yeah, we see a lot of symbology that's similar to the Freemasons or Templars. Um, and I looked where they got this compass and square thing, and that goes back all the way to cuneiform tablets in Samaria, believe it or not. You can find that right on Wikipedia. And I thought that was pretty peculiar that symbol has been around that long. Um, they use the eye of Ra or Horus as well in a lot of their things. So it's interesting what secrets they have and why it's a secret society, what justifies that, and maybe there's more to the story here.
Matt wrote, looks like a tourist trap bazaar.
Yeah, some of them are found at the bazaars. That's the thing. I'm just studying them to find out because some of them had techniques and stuff that was far beyond a lot of the other stuff at the bazaar. Like they were pieces that didn't quite fit into the bazaar status, and um, yeah, I'm just researching to see because even a 1% chance that this stuff's real, we need to know.
Yeah, I mean that. If 1% is real, as you say, that changes everything in our
Yeah.
history. That brings back the Star Child that Lloyd Pye had. It brings everything back into focus again.
Hmm. Exactly, and that's. I mean, it's prophesied to happen, which is the crazy part too. Is like a lot of this stuff is said to be found about our origins and histories, and you look at Antarctica and stuff like that. I think we're going to find a lot of really interesting things. They found numerous saber-toothed tiger skulls and remnants down there in Antarctica. So there obviously was civilization there at one point.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I think the problem is when they're not really going to tell us the secret stuff from
No, it's
Antarctica.
just like Area 51 and paper, all these things. I mean, they've got a really bad track record, and some of it's come to the surface now with Luis Alessandro, or I never say his name right, but all that stuff coming out with the classified reports and stuff, and it's all redacted crap. But at the same point, they're definitely letting us know that there's something going on.
Definitely, definitely. Is there any anything that because that just on the surface there, I thought that looked like a little mummy. Was there any mummified images of anything?
Oh yeah, I've got a few sarcophagus here. I'll show you one right here.
Oh
Well,
wow.
this one obviously is a sarcophagus with the being in there. There's a lot of smaller ones like this here.
Wow.
Here, I'll bring this over in the light because it has a lot of language on it. I mean, a lot of language on this piece.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of sarcophagus. I believe that stone there is kind of like a sarcophagus. It's got this being in there with which is strange because it's got the bird wings and
Win.
body. Uh, it's kind of strange. And then let's see here. Oh yeah, this turtle over here is a sarcophagus as well. This one's pretty peculiar because it's got like multiple stages in it.
A Russian doll, the first Russian doll.
Yeah, no, there are ones that are just like that, where they have multiple pieces inside of each other. And there's another one down in there. I'm not going to pull it out, but
Again, for a fake, they didn't really have to go for the second layer. They could have just left it at the first, and you would have been happy.
yeah, yeah. Same with this. Like this is it looks like an abduction. It's a spaceship, right? I mean, there's all these inlays on the side, which it's like, what did you need to put that there? And then you see the female genitalia as well as the human esque of this with weird helmet on and two grays standing over. It's strange, a lot of extra
Yeah.
detail with the genitalia and stuff that would I just and I've seen that on a lot of things like really like Anubis with a large thing and just pieces that you wouldn't think that they would try to fake with that because it wouldn't sell as good or something. I don't know.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
So
these are all from Mexico, Danny. Different ports. Abuelos de Jalisco and Tula Hidalgo.
Sean has wrote, "What piece gives you the best vibe?"
Uh, the best vibe, well, the Jed pillar. If you're not familiar with what a Jed pillar is, it looks similar to this right here. You see this looks like these stacks of things, and it was depicted heavily in Egypt. And this Ankh bent neck staff Jed combination was very very. I don't know if it's royal or predominant, but either way, that Jed pillar, I've got one out of the stone, and I mean it. I knew before I even took the bubble wrap off of it that that's what it was when I was unboxing this box. Like it almost felt like it was shaking the room energy wise.
Wow. June has wrote, "The people that you bought some of these artifacts, did they share any stories on how they possessed these items?"
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've worked with like 30 different families down there and tried to get to the bottom of it. And lots of stories. The ones that go back the furthest, I've got a guy that lived in Tula. He's got a potato farm there. He's had it for like 35 years. And when he tills the beds in his farm, he finds stuff. And a bunch of dirt just came out of this thing. These seashells hold the dirt for forever, it seems like. But yeah, he started finding statues like this. This actually came from his potato field right here. Um, and
Mm.
so it's interesting on the that's from Tula, but now a lot of the pieces in Tula, you've got people that caretake the sacred sites down there. They're in charge of the groundskeeping and weeding and stuff like that. That family is very well respected there, and they can get the security and people to turn their eyes or know when it's safe to go out there and do digging. It's very dangerous to do digging down there, so most of the guys are doing it. They'll go survey with geo radar or GPR during the daytime, and then they'll go back at nighttime and dig because it's very illegal to dig. And in Abuelos, it's different, and not in terms of legality, but just in terms of how they're going out there and finding the stuff. Um, the gentleman that a lot of this stuff comes from, he has a ranch. His grandfather's had a ranch, and they started finding them in like 1991, and the government came in on El Toro Mountain and wanted to build a wind farm. And so they started to do the prospecting and getting the holes ready. And his grandfather was contracted because he owned part of the land to do that work. And that's when they really started finding him. And he has some stories as well about a feathered serpent and a beam of light that came and hit one of the caves that he went and was told the mountain was his and that he could take these items and a bunch of stories like that from the families. But it's all fairly consistent, and that's the strange part. As far as the age tests go, to answer your question, easy. There's biological or material that can be tested in this glue, as well as on ceramic pieces, and both of them have come back with consistent date ranges between 10 and 21,000 years. The oldest piece that I've seen metal is 21,000 on the carbon date. And the oldest on the ceramic thermoluminescence is about 15,000, and that's a piece that Nassim Harriman has. There's certain pieces like this one here that just have a vibe that they're older than some of the others, so it's interesting. The Abuelos items definitely span, I think, the largest period in history that we're observing. I mean, 10,000 years is a long time for a civilization to exist.
Some records. I was watching a video last night, and they mentioned we have 11 dimensions. Thoughts on that? Just my own personal thoughts. I do believe we have different dimensions, but until we can prove it, it's difficult to say. But what's your thoughts?
I had an experience with the ayahuasca stuff back when I was a younger man, and I left my body. And at that point, I really believed that I was a vessel holding a soul. It felt like that made sense to me at that point. And so, as far as different dimensions go, I mean, I left my body and definitely went somewhere else. And it was so real. It gave me PTSD symptoms, and it took me weeks to get back to, when I'd think about it, I'd start having panic attacks. And it was such an impact on my life. I don't know, but it definitely gave me a more open mind to it, I guess, for sure. And now that I'm researching J.J. Hertock's work, the amount of science that this man involves with his studies, it goes into many, many different people's works of multiple dimensions, and I definitely believe in it.
Okay. Sherry's contradicted something earlier. Sherry's wrote the crocodile-headed god is Sobek. We need to go back and research because we.
Oh yeah, I think the one that they said that, and it was actually Anubis's wife, maybe, that was mentioned earlier. That name, it rung a bell, but I think it's actually his wife, which we just found a piece with her on it. That was the first one I'd seen. That's how I think that.
You mentioned Luis Elizondo earlier. Susie Q wrote, Luis Elizondo is an active CIA agent, in my opinion. I don't think so. In my opinion, if they were CIA and they knew about aliens, they wouldn't want to have someone go out and start talking about aliens. They would just not talk about it at all. To actually put someone out there and deal with, the guy from Blink 182 or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Tom DeLonge, yeah. See, these people are pushing the alien agenda, and I think that so the way Gen 6 theorizes this, and I think they're probably pretty close, is the alien agenda is being pushed right now. That's why they show ancient aliens exist, but also why it's kind of closed-minded to some stuff like this and religious topics, etc. And I think you're seeing, control of the narrative, and so the rumor has it is that, if the fallen angels or Satan is behind this and he's using temptation and control to manipulate the human race, then what he's trying to do is get the human race to welcome the aliens and the spaceships with open arms as creators and gods to come here and give us knowledge. He's going to come here himself and give us knowledge and act like these UFOs or these aliens. And then people are going to openly worship Satan and not even know it. And that's the big fear with a lot of people that are studying this, is that's what we're dealing with.
So just thinking back to what Susie just said there, there's also, I guess, the other possibility that if Susie's right and he is working for the CIA, he's doing it in such a way that it leads up to Project Bluebeam. In other words, letting drip feeding us so that when we do see this fake alien invasion, we all believe that it's real.
Bingo. Yep. Yeah, it definitely makes sense on a deceptive temptation level. And if you look at, the Garden of Eden, the snake, the serpent, the whole thing of temptation, how it works, how the people, criticize the Catholic Church for being satanic. Well, probably because they're a prime target for his manipulation. Like if he's really a real thing, that's why the pagans, the witch hunts, all these crusades happen to try to get rid of this belief and worship. Then and maybe there's more to it as well. It's really hard to pick sides. I can't at this point. I just try to keep an open mind because there's so many lies. It seems like.
Danny's came along a bit later and asked, "Where did you get them from?"
Yep, all from Mexico. Huelos de Jalisco. With these type of pieces, this type of iconography, and then Tula Hidalgo is where like these boxes and certain things are coming from. The skull here.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Sherry.
Luis. Yeah.
Skimit was the cat-headed god. The crocodile god was Sobek. Yes, I need to go back and research all of that.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah, I
reading.
get lost on some of them. There's quite a few if you really start researching. What was really cool was, we saw this guy, for instance, here, and I didn't ever see him in Egypt. Maybe one of you guys have, but I'd never seen this character before until I started researching this. And now we've got probably 15 to 20 different depictions of him, and some of them are more detailed. So this is actually the Eye of Ra here, is what this is depicting. So I believe this is Ra or the sun god depiction. Some of them have rays of light coming off, and others have the actual eye modeled on there. But it's interesting to think that they would come up with a deity on these pieces, or an image for a deity that we've never seen before like that. It's interesting.
DD's wrote, "I need to get a notification when you are live." That would be awesome. So I would guess
Yeah.
just follow your name on TikTok is called.
Yep, it's at Alien Carvings. It's the same with YouTube, Instagram, aliencarvings.com. Um, and yeah, you can subscribe or whatnot, and it'll tell you. I usually go live on the Pacific time zone in the evenings, so it would be like 5-6 hours from now, 8 hours from now.
I have to once again thank you
No,
very much for doing it early.
as far as opals go, I do have a couple pieces that have what seem to be possibly a low quality opal. For instance, like this one here. You're not going to see any real flash on it though, but I believe to say it could be after looking at it with a microscope. Um, no fire opals though, or anything like that. My wife, she cuts opals from Australia, so we're all about the opals here.
Wow. So do you think you'll be able to get, obviously this has come from that sort of those particular regions. Are you looking at trying to find other ones, or has anyone suggested other places to go
Oh
pull
yeah,
some artifacts from
there's a
different locations?
full expedition going down in Ecuador, Guatemala, and Peru right now. I've got a good contact in Peru that I just contacted with Gen 6 Productions today. Hopefully he can shed some light on the market down there and what he's seeing. I've seen quite a few pictures of pieces, some of them kind of similar, a lot of gold and dragons, and not dragons per se, but serpents and lizards and snakes, so no pine
Wow.
cone depictions, but Father Crespi's collection out of Ecuador is really peculiar to me because it went missing after he passed, and I know multiple scholars like J.J. Hurtak who's actually studied that collection. Klaus Dona personally as well. Klaus has quite a few videos on YouTube regarding it. And what's strange about the Father Crespi collection is many of those pieces had similar ultraviolet reactions to these pieces.
That's interesting. So, is there any other TikTokers? I'm following Crystal Skulls, But is there other people on TikTok similar to yourself?
Oh yeah, Geo Aliens. He's my good friend and partner in this. We researched this together. He's got a collection that's similar to mine in terms of size, um, and yeah, there's a few others as well that are really starting to get into it. And so,
It's I'm guessing it's not for the people with sort of a low budget. Looking at the amount you've got there.
yeah, I've got about a quarter million invested into research and
Wow.
pieces right now.
Wow. I mean, you know,
The
I'd be
shipping
happy
is
with just
really what
one.
kills you, you know.
Really?
Yeah, so like that table was $1,700 to get it here.
Jeez. Jeez. And how do you get to see them before you buy them, or is it sort of blind luck?
Yeah, no, they send videos and pictures of what they find and yeah, you just go from there. However, the quality is always extremely compressed and horrible. So oftentimes you get the piece and it's much larger, much different than what you imagined it to be in terms of quality. A lot of these pieces have been way higher quality. Like this mask here, the picture of it that they had, it really looked kind of cheesy. And then, now getting it and seeing it, it's just the craftsmanship is just amazing on it.
Well, is that like a pipe out the mouth? So another whistle, maybe? Or
No, it's a pipe. Yeah, you can smoke out of it. There's,
wow.
yeah. Yeah. Seems like tobacco was their drug of choice from our knowledge and looking at the residue. Specifically in this pipe here, we were able to test it and see. Oh, not this one. I'm sorry, the other one. But they definitely had quite a few different pipes, and this one actually had salvageable. I don't know if it was resin specifically, but whatever the material was.
Wow. So they actually designed it a figure, but as a pipe as well at the same time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the line work, I wish I could get the macro. These are all just these hundreds of lines put on this mask by hand. It's insane.
Have you had any weapons? Not that you would probably be able to transport them, but has anyone offered you weapons that they may have found? I don't know, dagger or a sheath
Yeah,
or
here I'll show you some of these daggers. Quite a few daggers, mostly ceremonial. However, a couple of these here, like this. I mean, this thing is extremely sharp. You could do real damage with this.
oh wow, it's built into the handpiece. That's
And what's nice about these bone daggers is I've got two of them. So I'm sending one to the forensic guy, and it's doing all of our radiocarbon dating. And he's going to take a sample of these bones, and hopefully we can see, if they're really old or not. Also, there's a mortar that holds the obsidian in. And, it looks like a mortar more than an adhesive, so I don't know if there's organic material in it or not, but we're going to find out.
I mean, that bone, that's not a small bone. I mean,
No, and one of them was a bone that was so large the femur was larger than the length of my arm, or it looked like
yeah.
a femur, I guess. I can't say for sure, but yeah, pretty interesting. Some of the pieces like this one here. Let me move this real quick. Little handbag with a pine cone. But this is a interesting piece. It's got Horus on the front of it, and then let me set this down here. Doing all this one-handed is extremely painstaking because I don't want to drop it.
I would love to have seen these in situ when they were first found to see, were they propped up? Were they laying down? Were they on a table? Were they, in a makeshift window? I'd love to know sort of where they were so I
Yeah,
could figure
the,
out.
it's all between 30 centimeters and around 10 feet is where the line is. Some of them a little deeper. They're positioned in the ground. Some of them are flat laying. You know, a lot of the boxes seem like they're at a tilt or an angle, but are fairly flat. So it's interesting. It's almost as if they were just covered up one day by a large upheaval. That's kind of what it seems like because the way they lay. As far as structures and stone, you know, some of them are on altars and have quarried stone and stuff like that in terms of temples and places. Most of them are like down in caves. There's a large cave system that they completely gutted. Um, and that's actually where they started to use that UV light pretty heavily. They found quite a few pieces in there with that.
Wow. I mean, it's on the surface when you first sort of flick past your TikTok videos and you look at them, you think because I've got a couple of pieces from Egypt, but from a tourist place, and they've got this sort of look to them that they're trying to make it look like it's old.
Mm-hmm.
But you can just sort of, they're you can sort of tell they're mass produced in a way, just by the design on them and stuff. Whereas yours, I mean, some of it goes into hell of a lot of detail to sell
Mm-hmm.
one or two of. Whereas at least if you're doing mass producing them, you can sell lots of them in a tourist shop and not get in
Bingo.
trouble, not anything else. Whereas if someone's going through the aggro of making these, you have to find the buyers. You have to hope that the buyer's interested in it,
Yep.
um,
It's very niche.
and then put all the glowing inside and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of work to do for just
Big
selling the
time.
one product. That if it's not mass produced, you then have to go and do another one. I know you could say, well, they earn very little, in those countries, and therefore it's a lot of money to them. But still, as you say, someone's got to do the homework on some of these
And the fit and finish. They
information.
had to give love involved. Like, you don't just do art projects like this and get that kind of seals and get that kind of fit where these lids of these boxes fit on there snug and that the piece, just a lot of extra love involved for sure.
I mean, that alien, where the two aliens in the craft with the woman lying down. I mean, that is,
Yeah.
that would be my one that I would say would would be far too much for a faker to do a one off.
Mm-hmm. No, I
Right.
agree. Yeah. I'll show it here just a little bit more carefully up close.
I mean, to actually make it so it comes out, they could have just carved it in there,
Yeah.
and you still would have been happy. Do you know what I mean? There's a buyer.
Yeah, it's amazing. The whole bottom of it too is just completely. Oh yeah, that's a good way to show that. Interesting though. There's certain gems as well, like on this stone that we just have no idea what they are. Like these green gems, definitely not savorite or emerald or anything of that nature. They also glow green. I thought they were glass. It had to be glass in my opinion, based on my knowledge of rocks and minerals. But I've tested them as well as looked at them with a microscope, and there's no question inclusions from the earth in there. You can't fake that. Glass doesn't look like that. So,
Wow.
yeah, just studying them, Mary. I just got questions.
Yeah, I bet every time you get one of these, you've probably got more questions than answers.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely gone downhill fast. No.
Well, I don't want to keep you today because I know it's sort of like probably 2 o'clock there now, and you've already been with us for 2 hours, and then you said you're going to do another live later on. So
Yeah,
um, I'll maybe we'll do another one another day, but I don't want to sort of overstay my welcome. Absolutely
yeah.
fascinating. It's opened my eyes a little bit more than I did before. especially being able to ask you questions and stuff. So thank you once again. I'm sure from everyone, thoroughly
Yeah.
appreciate it. And
Eh, eh,
obviously, anyone that's interested in this stuff, you can go on his own TikTok site, his YouTube site, Aliens Carvings or Alien Carvings. Um, Brilliant. Thank you for taking the time to show us today.
Yeah, absolutely. I invite you to come on our channel too, and do a live that way. I'd love you to ask some questions and hear what you got to say. So,
Oh, brilliant. Lovely. I will do. Thank you very
yeah,
much. And
yeah,
thank you to
absolutely. Have a good
everyone.
day, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Bye. Bye.